Why is your remote project team secretly losing productivity? Today's question: why is your remote project team secretly losing productivity? By the end of this session, you'll be able to implement targeted communication protocols, leverage virtual collaboration tools, and foster an empowered culture to overcome the unique challenges of managing virtual project teams. PM Panda here, 2.5 decades delivering projects, PMP certified since 2003. The mistake I'm about to show you is how budgets really die when the silence starts to get expensive. I have watched too many managers pat themselves on the back for hiring the best, while their projects bled out because they tracked the wrong numbers and ignored the human silence. Managing a remote team is not just about checking boxes on a dashboard. It is about building a bridge over the geographical and psychological gaps that naturally form when we stop looking each other in the eye. Imagine you have hired the absolute top-tier talent from across the globe, including the best engineers in Bangalore, visionary designers in Berlin, and ruthless analysts in New York. You have got the dream team on paper, yet as the critical launch date for your new platform approaches, you realize the entire milestone is going to be missed by at least 3 weeks. Why? Because your team is working in silos, silently struggling with technical blockers they never mentioned because they didn't know who to ask or felt too isolated to bother. You feel the tension in the Slack channel, the awkward, heavy silences on your weekly Zoom calls, and that pit in your stomach when you check the project dashboard only to see no real progress has been made since last Tuesday. This isn't just a technical glitch or a lack of skill. It is the slow death of momentum caused by the physical and psychological distance of remote work. You aren't actually managing a team right now. You are managing a collection of isolated, frustrated individuals who are slowly checking out because the system you gave them is broken. Today, we are going to fix that productivity gap once and for all before your budget vanishes. Let's start with the hard truth about virtual project teams, which are simply groups of professionals working from different locations or countries to achieve a shared project goal. While the flexibility is great for the company's bottom line, these teams face massive hurdles like wildly different work styles, misaligned time zones, and the complete absence of that casual water cooler interaction where the real problems usually get solved. This environment is the perfect breeding ground for quiet quitting, a professional term for when team members do the bare minimum to keep their jobs but stop volunteering for tasks, stop speaking up in meetings, and stop caring about the project's success. I have seen software projects where the velocity dropped by a staggering 40% because developers felt invisible and essentially became ghosts in the machine. If you are preparing for professional certification exams, you need to understand that managing these human dynamics is just as critical as managing your critical path or your resource histogram. Remote burnout is real, and it looks like a team that is online but isn't actually moving the needle. To stop the rot and get your velocity back, you must move beyond just giving people a login to a chat app and actually establish clear, non-negotiable norms and protocols. In professional project management, we call this a team code of conduct, and it is the single most important document for any successful virtual operation. You need to explicitly define which tools are used for which specific tasks, so there is zero ambiguity for a tired engineer at 3 in the morning in a different hemisphere. For example, you must specify that urgent blockers go to instant messaging with a specific high-priority tag, while complex design debates require a scheduled video call to avoid those toxic text-based misunderstandings. Standard progress updates should belong strictly on the project dashboard to keep the noise out of the chat channels. By setting these ground rules early and sticking to them, you remove the heavy mental load of how do I communicate and let the team focus on what am I building, which is exactly what you are paying them for. If you don't set the rules, the loudest or most confused person will set them for you, and that is a recipe for a project disaster. Building an empowered culture is your final and most important defense against remote burnout and total project failure. This means creating an environment where team members feel safe to collaborate constructively and solve their own differences proactively without waiting for you to play referee. As a leader, you have to prioritize mental health initiatives and work-life balance because a burnt-out team is an expensive, useless team. One of my favorite practitioner tactics is the share the pain, share the gain principle for managing global time zones, where you rotate your meeting times so that no single region is always the one staying up until midnight for a status call. If the team in London has to wake up early this week to catch the team in Singapore, then the team in San Francisco takes the late shift next week. This small, consistent act of fairness builds massive trust and proves to your people that you actually value their humanity over just their keyboard strokes. When people feel respected across borders, they are much less likely to quiet quit when the project gets difficult. Let's walk through a real-world worked example of an international tech launch where we were deploying a new enterprise platform across 3 continents with a team of 30 people. Early on, we noticed our productivity metrics tanked by 25% because the developers in Asia were constantly blocked by architectural questions, while the senior analysts in North America were fast asleep. Instead of adding more useless status meetings, I implemented a visual workflow tool that tracked every single task in real time and established a mandatory 4-hour overlap rule for critical decision-making. We mandated that any debate lasting more than 5 minutes on Slack required an immediate 10-minute video call, which saved us roughly 15 man-hours per week in wasted circular communication. We also started rotating the weekly global sync by 8 hours every month, moving the pain of the midnight call around the world fairly. Within 6 weeks, our engagement scores jumped from a miserable 60% to over 90% because the team finally felt the leadership respected their time and their expertise. Numbers don't lie. Happy, respected teams deliver projects faster than isolated, exhausted ones every single time. After 25 years in the trenches, I can tell you exactly what most people get wrong when they go remote. The biggest mistake is assuming natural collaboration will just magically happen because you bought a license for expensive software. Providing virtual collaboration tools is not a management strategy. It is just a utility, and without a strict code of conduct, it just becomes a faster way to spread confusion and noise across the internet. Another fatal error is ignoring the subtle, creeping signs of quiet quitting, like a senior developer who suddenly stops offering suggestions or a project lead who starts taking 6 hours to reply to a simple, quick ping. If you don't intervene the moment you see the engagement levels dropping, you are basically waiting for the project to hit a wall at full speed while you watch from a distance. For your professional certification exams, pay close attention to how communication planning and resource management overlap to prevent these exact human-centric scenarios from destroying your budget and your reputation. To wrap this up, never forget that virtual teams struggle because of isolation and poor protocols, but they succeed when you establish clear norms and an empowered culture. You can combat the silent productivity killers by defining your communication code of conduct today and rotating the time zone pain to keep your global talent engaged and valued. If you want to keep your project on the rails and your team from checking out, your next actionable step is to draft that code of conduct with your team and decide exactly which tools should be used for emergencies versus routine updates. If this breakdown helped you see the cracks in your own remote setup before they became chasms, hit the like button so I know to keep the real-world advice coming. Subscribe if you want practitioner lessons every week from someone who has actually been there and seen it all, and I will see you in the next one.